tēnā tātou e te whare, no tāwāhi aku tipuna, ko Griffa taku ingoa. Ai tēnā koe Timi I o kupu whakatau I ahau. My whāinga is to live up to that awesome introduction. We've got about half an hour or so, and I was introduced as a kairangahau, and I suppose we're all kairangahau in our lives as we have our multiple experiences. Hoi anō when it comes to the ōkawa, the official rangahau. I haven't actually done that part, so I'm just going to chat to you about my experiences, chat to you about some of my opinions and things that I have observed in my experiences. And then at the end, because we've got a whole half an hour, there's plenty of time for you to challenge what I'm saying or ask pātai, or we can just have a chat about it. Or else maybe there's like a little opportunity to have a little break before the next kaupapa at 2:30. So tēnei kaupapa, engaging with Kaupapa Māori as Pākehā. I was asked to come and talk about engaging with Kaupapa Māori as tauiwi. And I changed the name of the presentation because I wanted to speak really directly to some of the āhuatanga, some of the ways, some of the things we need to be aware of as Pākehā, engaging with Kaupapa Māori and Māori people, because we as Pākehā, white people, New Zealand, European, however we want to name ourselves, we have a really, really different history with Te iwi Māori in terms of colonisation. We are the colonisers, whereas with our tauiwi whānau, although there might be little bits and pieces that are relatable in this kōrero, there isn't the history of harm, not the same history of harm. So I wanted to be really specific in talking about being Pākehā and making friends with that term, being Pākehā, and figuring out, well, how do we be Pākehā in Māori spaces without colonising the Māori spaces. Okay, so paku disclaimer. Everything I'm going to tell you, I know because all I've done is listen to Māori people, and I've done that for a really long time. It was Nikita yesterday did a kōrero on whakarongo, so she's got all the answers. If you want to know how to listen, you can ask Nikita. She knows how she's written it down, and I was listening to her yesterday and I was like, oh, that's my kōrero. Hoi anō, she's done a brilliant job with that. So if there are any aha moments, we need to credit that to Māori people that I have listened to. I'm just the deliverer with a tirohanga Pākehā. So with a Pākehā view of things, it doesn't matter how long I spend in Te Ao Māori and in Māori spaces and speaking Te Reo Māori, the way that I see the world, I'm very, very clear still a Pākehā way of seeing the world. So some of my collections are mātauranga from people I've been lucky to wānanga with, but I'm still presenting it as a wahine Pākehā. So I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown on my experience because it's been long. So I tupu ake ahau I o rākei I te taha rāwhiti o Tāmaki Makaurau. And I was really affected by the whenua and the people and the moana in Ōrākei. And so that's where my reo comes from. It's not that I learned how to speak Māori in Ōrākei, but the influence of those people growing up amongst tangata whenua impacted me in such a way that I had this deep-seated longing just to kōrero Māori. So I kōrero Māori because I love Te Reo Māori. I don't kōrero Māori because I'm a good person. It's got nothing to do with that. I don't kōrero Māori because I'm trying to revitalise Te Reo. That's not my job. I kōrero Māori because I love Te Reo Māori. It's beautiful, and when you do kōrero Māori, all of a sudden there's all this mātauranga that becomes available to you, and I get really excited about mātauranga Māori, and it's a great privilege to have access to all of that information because you can't just Google it, you have to wānanga. So yeah, that was my tipuranga I tupaki au I Ōrākei. My tamariki are Māori, they're from Ngāti Manawa, Murupara in the central North Island. Tokori marātau, I kōrero mai atam. I've got 5 daughters and they're from Ngāti Manawa, so of course my in-laws are Māori, so although I'm not Māori, I get to be part of a Māori whānau. I get to have lots of marae experience and things like that. So my experience in Te Ao Māori is not one of just academically following te reo, but having lots of relationships, real life whiako in Te Ao Māori. I deliberately put my tamariki into kohanga reo and kira Kaupapa Māori because I wanted to learn te reo, and I wished that I had grown up with te reo Māori. So I put my tamariki into kohanga reo, which gave me a community of people who could kōrero Māori, who were very, very patient and allowed me to practice with them every single day when I went to pick my kids up. So I was able to go to Te Wānanga Takiura and I learned how to kōrero Māori in that wānanga, but I was able to sustain my reo because of kohanga reo and kira kaupapa, because that reo didn't just stay in the classroom, but my tamariki had the reo, all of their kaiako, all of their friends, parents, and so on and so forth. So I had a community. I went to Te Wānanga Takiura and I spent a year just learning te reo, total immersion 1 year. You can learn to kōrero Māori in a year. My reo was riddled with mistakes, but I could kōrero Māori, and I enjoyed it so much. I didn't want to be a teacher, but at the time, 2009, I couldn't think of any other space I could go into where I could just only kōrero Māori all day, every day, except being a teacher. So I decided to stay at Te Wānanga Takiura, and I did 3 years there. And that was 3 years of 9 to 3, only speaking Māori. I did all my practicums only in total immersion kira, because I knew I had a lot to learn. And then when I finished my tohu, I was able to I worked in a bilingual kira for about a year, and then I had been at Hwani Waititi ever since up until the end of last year. So with that comes lots and lots of opportunities to reflect on how to be a Pākehā in Te Ao Māori, whether that's a classroom environment, whether that is a whānau environment, or whether it's a tikanga based or kawa practicing environment, and I'm talking about things like tangihanga, dawn karakia, things like that. So I've just had lots and lots of opportunities to reflect on what the role is that I play, what the role is that I don't play, what the role is that I play but maybe shouldn't, and all of those types of things. Okay, so this is a concept that I just want to talk to you about zooming in and looking at yourself as a Pākehā or as a person in Te Ao Māori, and then zooming out and looking at the big picture. So there's a whole lot of things that you can do right as a Pākehā, because we want what we're looking for, We're looking for the handbook, how to be a good Pākehā, how to be an ally. I wish I had the answer, there isn't one, but there are some things that we do know. So we want Pākehā to pronounce kupu Māori correctly, right? Maybe we want Pākehā to kōrero Māori as well, that's debatable. There's all sorts of things we want to do right. We want Pākehā to be super, super respectful. We want Pākehā to be mindful of tikanga and understand tikanga. Do we want Pākehā to practice and lead tikanga? Probably not. Oiano, debatable. So you can look at yourself, or I've been able to look at myself and go, oh yeah, I think I'm a good Pākehā because I did this, and this. However, if I'm to step outside of that and not look at myself as an individual, but think about being Pākehā as an iwi, think about it as a group of people, some of those things that might look like being a good Pākehā suddenly become really not good when there's a whole lot of us doing it. And I suppose learning te reo Māori would be the obvious one. There's been major mahi put into revitalising te reo, and everyone should go and learn te reo. So all us Pākehā think, I don't want to be racist, I'm going to go learn te reo. And then our Māori whānau go, there's not enough spaces in the class for us anymore. They go, you've asked 100 questions about grammar, and I haven't had time to ask my question yet. You've got all these questions about grammar, but you haven't even bothered to practice the pronunciation yet. So it's the zooming in and looking at yourself as an individual. It might feel okay, but we need to step back and look at the impact of us as a people. And I don't think Pākehā, we don't talk about ourselves as a people. We don't do that. Some of us are still scared of the word Pākehā, so we can't even agree on what to call ourselves. An example of that, this year I was asked to translate some resources for the kura that I used to work at. I was asked by a new kaiako who had a massive workload. She's Māori. She said, can you just translate this stuff for me? Because I had been teaching that curriculum area for about 5 years. So first of all, if you're not a translator, you shouldn't translate anything. But if you work in kura kaupapa, you don't have a choice. You have to translate everything all the time. And also as a parent at a kura kaupapa, when a kaiako says, I need help, can you help? You really should help them. So I agreed to go ahead and do that mahi for her, take the workload off her a little bit, and she offered to pay me with her own money, which started a bit of an argument between us. She wanted to pay me for my time, and I didn't want to accept money for doing that mahi from a Māori person. I don't accept mahi for any translations because I'm not a translator anyway. But the back and forth was, but you've done the time and you've developed these skills and you should be compensated fairly. And when I zoom in and just look at myself, yeah, I should be compensated for this. Years and years and years of developing that skill, that's hours of translating, yes, I should be compensated fairly. But if I'm to zoom out and look at my whole entire iwi, and we just make the narrative really, really short. So the Pākehā people came, we stole the land, then we stole the reo, and then we sold it back to the Māori. So that's why, although at face value, it might feel okay to do that, if we can step back, then we can probably get a lot more guidance of what's right and what's wrong. There is no, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, and every Māori person will tell you everyone has their own opinion on what's right and wrong, but if we listen really careful, we can figure it out, and we can definitely Pākehā mā do a lot better than what we're already doing. I just wanted to touch on pepeha. Just as a kaupapa kōrero, something to have a chat about. I've heard lots of different types of pepeha over the last day or two. And when I introduce myself in Te Ao Māori, and I'm not talking just classroom, I'm talking all sorts of different things, I don't say a pepeha. The reason I don't say a pepeha is because my tipuna didn't say a pepeha. Saying a pepeha is a very uniquely Māori way of introducing yourself, and it doesn't resonate with me. I could say a pepeha. When my mum went to learn Te Reo Māori, she did all of the research, so I know back in Scotland the name of my maunga and the awa and all of those things, but it doesn't sit right with me, not based on classroom experience but real life experience. If the purpose of a pepeha is to make connections, and I stand up and I tell you about this maunga all the way back in Scotland that I've never seen myself, that my ancestors didn't pass that knowledge down to me. I only know it because my mum went to a Reo Māori class and felt obliged to find it out. So that's why I don't do that. I don't think when Pākehā say a pepeha, it makes any connections. I think it's been quite widely talked about recently, but I'll just touch on it. Why Pākehā shouldn't use landmarks, significant landmarks from here in Aotearoa. It doesn't matter how you phrase it, whether you use taku maunga or te maunga or some other type of sentence structure, as soon as you start naming landmarks in an introduction, it sounds like you're Māori. And so my thing is always, I could be mistaken for Māori because I have Māori kids and I speak Māori and all the rest of it, and because of who my friends are. So as soon as possible, when I meet new people, I like to put the disclaimer out there somehow, he Pākehā aho. That's without waltzing into the room and going, hey everybody, guess what, I'm Pākehā, because we don't want to centre ourselves either, but we do want to give that messaging and be really honest about it. An example of that, can I have a show of hands if you've ever heard of tainui waka? Anybody heard of tainui? Yeah? Okay, keep your hand up if you have a connection to tainui waka. my tamarikia from Taunui Waka, ka pai. Can I have a show of hands if you have heard of Ben Lomond? Ben Lomond. Okay. So okay, and if your ancestors came on that waka. Oh yeah, the first time in my life I made that connection. So that's my people's waka. It was a ship. I actually have a copy of the ticket that my ancestors bought. So for our whānau stories, that's really, really significant. However, to introduce that and say ko mea taku waka in public, highly unlikely, like first time in my life, because I've done this lots of times, that you're going to make connections, and if you do, it probably doesn't tell you a lot about the person. You might be related, maybe not. So yeah, there are other ways, and I encourage us to figure out our own ways of introducing ourselves beyond pepeha. I think it's different for tauiwi, especially no te moana nui a kiwa, your motu, your village, those sorts of things. That's a really different relationship. Pākehā, we have a real different relationship with our ancestors, lots of forgetting going on. Okay, another thing I just wanted to chat about was white privilege in te ao Māori. So I think the concept of white privilege in general, that white people are more likely to be able to rent a house, get a job, I think we all understand that. There's been lots and lots of rangahau, of research done on it. There's lots and lots of writing, and I think it's commonly accepted. I first learnt about white privilege when I was about 12 or 13, and all my friends were not Pākehā, but I was the Pākehā one, and every day after school, because we were like 12 or 13, we would be starving, and we didn't have a job, we didn't have any money, but we had a route we would take to get home from our kura all the way back to Ōrākei, and we knew where all the fruit trees were, and we knew which houses nobody was home, so you could just help yourself, and we were just taking enough to eat, so very innocent. We knew where people weren't home, we knew where there were people home, but they're going to say no, so just be subtle about helping yourself to that fruit. And we also knew in some houses, if you ask nicely, they'll say yes. We just knew this is just the mātauranga o te rangatahi. And my friends would say to me, Griffa, you're white, you go. So that's when I learned about white privilege. I learned that the white kid is the one that knocks on the door and asks if me and my friends can just have a little bit of fruit off your tree. So I think white privilege is kei te marama tātou. But what I just wanted to touch on was white privilege in te ao Māori. So if you're a white person that is confident around tikanga, that knows the words to the waiata tautoko, that's able to pronounce kupu Māori correctly, and all of these types of things, that knows when to pick up the tea towel and when to get out of the way, if you have that sort of experience and understanding, you'll absolutely be put on a pedestal in te ao Māori. And so I'm not saying that Māori should not acknowledge that type of person. Māori mā kei a koutou te tikanga kaua mā te Pākehā e tohu tohu tino kore nei. Hoi anō Pākehā mā. We need to be really aware that that's what's happening, because sometimes we get an inflated sense of our own pukenga, and a real inflated sense of our own importance. And there's lots of examples for me as a Pākehā who speaks Māori. I learnt te reo alongside Māori people, but the media always wants to talk to me. I took all my tamariki through kohanga reo, and I went to every single hui, and I went to every single fundraiser, and that was my life for 15 years kohanga reo. But my friends who have whakapapa Māori, it's just expected that they would do that. Nobody says thank you to them. And most of that movement kohanga reo is wahine Māori. But the wahine Pākehā gets the big paki, amazing, te mea, te mea, te mea. The misconception that I speak te reo because I'm doing it for my kids. I speak te reo because I love te reo. I don't speak te reo because I'm a good person. But we can, I'm not saying I'm a bad person. But I think here in Aotearoa, and this is Alinda Tuhiwai Smith kōrero, we tend to think as Pākehā, we're like, okay, don't like the racism going on here, I'm going to do something about it. I'll go learn te reo Māori. I don't think that's an anti-racist move to make. When we go and learn te reo Māori, we gain, but we haven't handed over any power. I don't think we've done anything that's sort of for realsies when we do that. And then everyone pats us on the back and makes a big deal out of us, which is lovely. And koira te ahu reo Māori, he whakanui te tangata, he manaaki te tangata. But we just Pākehā need to be really, really understanding that that's what's happening to us. It's not because we're necessarily super good at what we're doing. We're just maybe seen as being a little bit different from the rest of our iwi or our people. I was told how beautiful my pronunciation was when I went to start learning te reo Māori. For 5 years I just got all the mihi, but nobody said for a Pākehā, and it was 5 years before someone broke it to me that I did not know how to pronounce the letter T at all, and I was making that up really, really badly. So sometimes it can be, although it's lovely to be celebrated and welcomed and everything, sometimes it's not that helpful, because you get that false sense of importance and false sense of your pūkenga. So just some things to be aware of. I hope that we as Pākehā can talk about these things a lot more, because like I said, there is no handbook to tell us what's right and wrong. We need to have these kōrero in conjunction with Māori. They are the keepers of the knowledge, and they'll tell us, whether it's through kupu or actions, they'll tell us what to do. But at the same time, we don't want to be running up to Māori every 5 seconds, what should I do now, what should I do now? So we need to take some of that mental load away, and make spaces for us to make peace with our really horrible abusive history, and make peace with the name Pākehā and white and all of those sorts of things. So we've got a lot of mahi to do. We should have a little bit of time. Oh yeah, we've got 5 minutes left. So either we can have some chats, maybe some people have pātai or challenges, I don't mind. So we can have some chats, but if there's one thing that you do today, you could link to. So this is not going to take any, you're not bothering any Māori people by making a submission against the treaty principles bill. That will link to it. So this is one example of the many little things that we can do as Pākehā to be better tiriti partners, to be better Pākehā. It's not just the fun stuff of taking bits and pieces of te ao Māori for ourselves, but really politicising ourselves, putting our necks out there, giving up tūranga mahi, giving up money, giving up land. I tried to, we bought our first house 3 years ago, and I said to my tāne, we should put in our will that is going to go to the Kawerau Maki land back. And he's like, you know I'm Māori, eh? Like, and our kids are Māori. So, yeah, but hey, at least we're having that conversation, and those conversations will become less and less radical as we go. Nā reira, tēnā rawa atu tātou katoa. He pātai? Oh, ai, kia ora whaia. So for the last 4 years, I've taught te reo Māori, and the majority, for te ahu o te reo. So all of the students were either kaiako, or they were something to do with the educational system and working with tamariki. The majority of my level 1 and 2 students were Pākehā or tauiwi, and that's where, like, it was a straight, you cannot do a pepeha. So, yeah, and that was in consultation with lots and lots of other kaiako, and we worked really hard on catering directly to our non-Māori students in a way to make our Māori students safer. So that's the only other forum that I've had to talk about these things, apart from like personal kōrero with people like Tim. Ai. Kia ora. Oh, that's such a good pātai. So the thing is, if you're going to go learn te reo Māori and take it seriously and keep going, you're going to get to a stage where you're at a wānanga and they're going to teach you how to karanga. So as it happens, I've been in lots of wānanga and I've learnt how to karanga, and it's either you go to the teacher, sorry, I can't do this activity because I'm a Pākehā, and you interrupt the flow and you don't want to make it about you, or you just do it. So in wānanga, I've been pretty comfortable doing it. There's probably about 3 or 4 times in my life I've decided to karanga. I don't think that I should, but you're weighing up, is it better to be silent or is it better to karanga? Most of the time it's probably better to be silent. A few just specific, very specific horopaki I've been in where I've been asked to do it, and in my head it makes sense. I suppose that's coming back to the thing of there's no handbook, this is right, this is wrong. What's wrong is that there are wahine Māori who by birthright should know how to karanga but don't, and then I've had the privilege of going to learn it. That's the part that's wrong. But if I am to take all those learnings and then just go, oh nah, I'm not going to help, I'm not going to participate, that's wrong too. But then me stepping in and go, yeah, I'll do it, that's also wrong. So, but that is what we're dealing with as Pākehā. This is the consequence of what our tipuna have done. Yeah. He pātai anō? Kua pau te wā. Tēnā tātou.